Have you ever wondered what kind of tea was thrown into the harbor during the Boston Tea Party? Did you know you can still get those teas today? I was recently in Boston and saw this historical tea sampler from Oliver Pluff and snatched it up immediately. This tea set recreates 5 of the most popular teas that were imported into the American colonies in the 1700s. And today we're going to taste each one and learn a little history along the way. First up is bohea. In colonial America, bohea was a blend of Chinese black teas that was so popular the name eventually started to be used to refer to tea in general. In the 18th century, bohea was blended using several less expensive grades of black tea, including broken orange pekoe, and souchong leaves, rather than the finest whole leaves. See how these leaves are shorter and broken? These smaller pieces of tea leaves tend to brew faster and have a bold, astringent flavor. Bohea had mass market appeal, and by today's standards, I'd consider it on par with a grocery store tea brand versus a premium loose leaf tea. During the Boston Tea Party, 242 chests of bohea were destroyed, which was more than any other type of tea. This bohea blend has a smoky aroma, but it's not as intense as Lapsang Souchong. Reminds me a bit of Russian Caravan. It brews up a delicate amber liquor and has a smooth, slightly malty, and mostly smoky flavor. I would prefer it with a splash of milk, but I prefer most black teas with milk. This next tea is one you probably know, Lapsang Souchong. If you've seen some of my tea-infused cocktail videos, you know I'm a big fan of using it to add layers of smoky flavor to recipes. Lapsang Souchong is a Chinese black tea that originated in the Wuyi Mountains of Fujian province. The name Souchong refers to teas made from larger, slightly more mature leaves on the tea plant. Compared to the bohea, you'll notice the Lapsang Souchong contains more whole leaves like this one. Larger whole leaves generally take longer to steep, which extracts a more layered flavor profile. Historical records show that 35 chests of Souchong tea were among those thrown into Boston Harbor during the Boston Tea Party. This is a classic Lapsang Souchong. It's traditionally smoke-dried over pine wood fires, giving it its signature smooth, smoky flavor that people often describe as tasting like a campfire. It's rich, smoky, savory, and robust. It would pair perfectly with sharp cheddar for a snack. Compared to black tea, green tea was less commonly exported to the Americas in the 18th century. One commonly suggested reason is that black teas held up better during long sea voyages, and over time, colonial tastes also shifted to stronger, more oxidized teas. However, there were still a few popular green teas like this one, Young Hyson, as well as Singlo and Gunpowder. It was a higher quality tea made from young green tea leaves harvested in spring. The leaves are tightly rolled and unfurl in hot water. This blend does not have a deep green color. In fact, it looks more similar to white teas like Silver Needle, with its pale color and long twisted leaves. Young Hyson was considered so valuable that Britain taxed it at a higher rate than many other teas. Records from Mount Vernon show that George Washington, an avid tea drinker, regularly purchased Hyson green tea along with bohea and gunpowder teas. Historical records show that 15 chests of Hyson were thrown into the harbor during the Boston Tea Party. This Hyson has a very classic green tea taste. It's mellow and fresh. It's pleasant, but it's not my favorite of the teas so far. Look at how different the leaves look after steeping. They're mostly intact, flat, and quite large. Our next tea is Singlo, a Chinese green tea. It's harvested later in the growing season using larger leaves, which are pan-fired before they're tightly rolled and dried. Pan-frying often gives green teas a nutty flavor. If you've ever had Dragon Well, that's another green tea that is pan-fired during processing. At the time of the Boston Tea Party, Singlo was not very well known in the colonies. 60 chests of this tea were among those thrown into Boston Harbor. I love this tea. Look at how large the leaves expand after infusing. The brew is a rich, buttery flavor with a nutty finish. It does remind me of Dragon Well, which is one of my favorite green teas. Finally, this tea is Kongu. Rather than referring to one specific tea, the name Kongu comes from a Chinese word meaning skill or workmanship, referring to the careful way the leaves were crafted into twisted shapes. If the name sounds familiar, you may have seen rose Kongu on afternoon tea menus, a classic rose-scented tea made with Kongu as its base. During the colonial era, Kongu was one of China's most important export teas. It was highly valued for its craftsmanship and was enjoyed throughout the American colonies. 15 chests of Kongu were tossed into Boston Harbor. The liquor brews up a deep amber color and it has a nice smooth flavor. It has slightly floral notes and is a little sweet in the finish. I would definitely order this at afternoon tea. And there you have it, These are the teas that were chucked into Boston Harbor during one of many pivotal moments leading up to the American Revolution. It was fascinating to taste them and to think about who was drinking them over 250 years ago.